Hey listeners, Phil here. I just wanted to let you know that this January, Stageworthy will be 7 years old, and I can hardly believe it's been that long. If you wanted to celebrate with me, there is no better way to do that than to help spread the news about Stageworthy by leaving a rating and review. Especially if you listen on Apple Podcasts. I would be so grateful if you did that. But I'm even more grateful that you're listening. Thank you for 7 years. I'm Phil Rickaby, and I've been a writer and performer for almost 30 years. But I've realized that I don't really know as much as I should about the theatre scene outside of my particular Toronto bubble. Now, I'm on a quest to learn as much as I can about the theatre scene across Canada. So join me as I talk with mainstream theatre creators you may have heard of and indie artists you really should know, as we find out just what it takes to be Stageworthy. If you value the work that I do on Stageworthy, please consider leaving a donation either as a one-time thing or on a recurring monthly basis. Stageworthy is created entirely by me, and I give it to you free of charge with no advertising or other sponsored messages. Your continuing support helps me to cover the cost of producing and distributing the show. Just 4 people donating $5 a month would help me cover the cost of podcast hosting alone. Help me continue to bring you this podcast. You can find a link to donate in the show notes, which you can find in your podcast app or at the website at stageworthy.ca. Now, on to the show. Kendall Savage is very funny and very serious about clown. She's the former artistic director and co-creator of the Montreal Clown Festival, a student at the Second City Conservatory, and a clown in her own right. In this conversation, we talk about the origin of the Montreal Clown Festival, how Kendall fell in love with clowning, how her innate clown might be an asshole, and much more. Here's our conversation. Welcome, Kendall. It's good to see you in person. It's been several years since I've seen your face
Yeah, I
in
don't
person.
remember the last time I saw you in person.
The last time you saw me in person would have been at the Halifax Fringe Festival.
Get out of
That
town.
is a
Oh,
fact.
that was
That is
crazy.
a fact.
Holy crap. That was a great festival. That's a beautiful city. That was a crazy I had a I can't get into it, but I had a
You
crazy
can't you can't articulate how good a time you had there.
no, I had a memorable time. I had an incredibly memorable there was a lot going on.
There was a lot going on because you were also producing the Montreal Clown Festival at the same time that you were
Yeah,
directing and presenting this show at the Halifax Fringe.
very. It was my last year, happily. Um how co-producing that festival. That was crazy. Sorry, I hadn't thought about the whole Halifax
How
experience
long
in a
how
long
long
time.
had you been producing that festival for?
Gosh, I think it had been we were in year number 4 or 5 when I handed it over to the incredible Vanessa Rodeo to take over the reins, which she has done an incredible job of. And they finally just had their very first year of funding, which was incredible. And they got to pay everyone appropriate prices and they got to move up to a beautiful, beautiful new, very different vibe, very wonderful theater. Le Gazoo. Sorry, hope I pronounced that right. Beautiful, old Montreal. And I just came back from it a few weeks ago and it was the most incredible experience. It was magical. It was really wonderful.
Wow.
Because I think now the New York Clown Festival is kaput. So all the New York clowns came up to see what
Oh shit, that's
was in
great.
Montreal. And so I met some wonderful new friends and got to see a bunch of clowns. They had one guy very happily flew in from Spain. Was like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm coming from Spain." And he performed one night, and I never got to. I don't even know his name, but he was an incredible performer. And I never saw him the rest of the festival. And he just like came in, did this one cabaret, and stayed for a day, and then flew off back to Spain or something.
Oh, people are really dedicated to their clown.
Well, in
Now,
Montreal, the community is wild in Montreal.
absolutely.
It's huge.
Absolutely. I know, Montreal has, like, a huge, scene for just the physical
Mhm.
arts,
Very
uh, as well as, clown and other things as well. Toronto, of course, had a clown festival, um,
yes. Yeah.
quite some time ago. I was, with Keystone Theater, and we were involved in that with
I saw
Misha
you.
twice.
That's where I very first saw you perform. I remember
Thank you.
that very
Yeah, yeah,
vividly. No, it
yeah.
was wonderful. I remember. Yeah, they folded. Unfortunately, Dave McKay and their wonderful crew of people folded in 2018.
Yeah.
Which was very sad because without them, my festival, the Festival de Clown de Montréal, would never have, or at least it wouldn't be what it is today because I wouldn't have created it. They really
Yeah.
had a heavy influence on that and inspired me to return to Montreal and start my own thing. So,
Well, it also I mean, it also like, there are these Keystone created 2 of our shows because of that festival. The Last Man on Earth, which we toured across Canada, Gold Fever, which we did a few times, and at the Toronto Fringe, like, those shows wouldn't have existed if not for the Clown Festival, because we got in with the proposal and we did the show because of that
yeah,
festival. So these shows were created because of that.
yeah. I sincerely believe the clown community owes a lot to Dave McKay and their crew, um, for their festival because they were originals. They were originals. It was unfortunate, but it didn't pan out the way everyone wanted. But
Mm.
that's life sometimes, and
I mean, it's
but so
it's
happy I got to
hard.
experience it. So
Yeah. It's hard to create a festival. It's hard, just as hard to keep a festival going. I mean, you know how hard it
no,
is to
no,
just,
yeah,
like, have a festival going,
so hard.
and
It
yeah.
is so hard. Like there are little surprises around the corner that I never would have imagined. Uh, just the legal contracts themselves sometimes became shocking, and a lot of the paperwork. My partner Vanessa Rio, when she came on board, uh, I was so grateful that we called each other the sparkle and the glue. So I was the sparkle and she was the glue, and she really kept behind the scenes with the paperwork, um, and the grant writing and everything. I would have been nothing without her. Like
Yeah.
she was great, but yeah, just keeping the artists happy alone sometimes and making sure we can honor their work appropriately with their technical needs and everything. Also, sometimes would just
Mm.
be so wild. And sometimes people would apply with shows and then show up and they'd have no show. So yeah, that happened way more than I ever want to experience again. That happened a lot, a lot.
Wow.
That
So
happened.
they would, like, just would they wing it?
There, I can remember the first few years, just having to bite the bullet and pay for extra time in the theater to make sure they were comfortable with their work and what was going on, and give them some rehearsal time and pay for rehearsal space.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it happened, and one wonderful thing I walked away from is I really learned how to pick and choose my wars, and that was very humbling,
Mm.
very quickly.
Mm.
Yeah, so
I mean, here's a question. How do you choose which battle to fight?
um, that's a good question. How do I choose? Well, I mean, if we're gonna pretend that it's okay, if we're gonna put the financial side aside, if it's gonna cost me a lot of money, it's not gonna happen. Because at that time, everything was coming out of my pocket. My pocket or my wonderful partner at the time, who was an incredible financial backer to our festival. If it was going to cost us too much money, now that's out of the question. That was not gonna happen. But it really was just having to step back and be like, okay, what's best for the work? What's best to keep everybody feeling supported? Like it never was about my happiness because it wasn't my festival. It was my festival, but it wasn't my festival. It was for the community, about community. I
Hmm.
wanted it to be somewhere where once a year everyone could gather and celebrate something we mutually love, learn about different styles and types of clown, and watch young artists flourish into professionals because we
Mm.
always created space for the baby clowns, for new clowns to come. And really, I just would have to step back a lot and be like, okay, what do I need to make sure that this artist is going to go on stage and feel as confident and comfortable and supportive as possible? And I would just have to do what was right and not necessarily what was easy. And
Mm.
then if I had to do what was right, I just would take a deep breath and be like, okay, let's problem solve. Because clowning essentially to me, it is problem solving the impossible with the ridiculous. It has
Right.
best worded, and that is what I believe, that one of the essence of clown is. It's what I look for when I go to shows. How are they using clown logic? How are
Mm.
they problem solving, with ridiculous action? And I that it unfolds into my everyday life. Like, okay, so let's find a way to fix this, and if it's a ridiculous way to fix it, it is what it is. So, okay.
Here's an interesting question, and it sort of like jumps into. So one of the questions I'm going to be asking is how you fell in love with clown.
Okay.
But before I get to that, I want to talk about. I feel like whenever I've done clown in the past, like way back in theater school, and anytime I've done it, everybody has their innate clown, the way that they naturally go before there's any kind of like you layer on character or whatever that becomes. You have the clown that you are. You put on that nose and you become that person.
Mhm.
Can you describe for me what your innate clown is? How are you when you begin at your natural clown?
I believe my natural clown is quite an asshole. Can I swear? Can I swear on this? Is there swearing allowed?
Fuck yes, yes, swear.
So my innate clown is very God, it's so funny like, listening to yourself articulate this. Um, my innate clown is just my innate clown is an asshole. So I and just wants to understand why everyone is so ridiculous and they are so normal and it's everybody else. And whenever I go into starting to get into my innate clown, and I breathe into my body and I breathe in my colors to my nose because I study the Pachenko technique primarily, although I have experienced many, many, many. It's where my heart lies. Um, and when I breathe in my colors and I breathe in my nose all at the very end, and with my eyes, I breathe in my natural surroundings and how my clown reacts to its natural surroundings. So depending on where I am, is my essential reaction to what is going on, and it often starts in a place of wondrous discovery, like whoa, what is this? Like why is this here? And then I find my feeling and allow my body to naturally react. And I really find a heavy sense of they don't my clown does not think it's an asshole, but in order to describe it best to you, asshole would be would be the first place I go to. It would and then just everyone is so ridiculous and I am the normal. Like
Yeah.
it's me. I hope I'm articulating that
No,
properly.
absolutely. Because there is that thing that people find when they first start like studying clown or doing clown and that first experience, putting on that nose. And finding this vulnerability and also this freedom to explore and discover and do things that somehow this red nose pulls off the inhibition that you have when you're not wearing that nose, right?
For
It's this
some, it
strange thing that
can.
happens.
Yeah, for some it can. For some, it's too much pressure. Like a lot of people put a lot of spiritual mumbo jumbo on the nose, and a lot of pressure that once that nose is on, I am a clown and everything, and it's just one tool in my toolbox, and it's a style choice as well.
Mhm.
Um, so the psychological pressures we put on ourselves to simply arrive on stage open and vulnerable with no fourth wall to explore and share our vulnerability and trust that the humor is going to come through with our moment to moment reactions through clown. I mean, if you have nothing planned, ideally, if you're going on stage, you might have a little something put together, moment to moment. And some people really thrive in the nose. I thrive in the nose. And then when I ever do the Gaulier te technique for clowning, I flounder. I struggle. When my nose is off, I am like, "What is my clown? Where am I?" Suddenly, I'm not as big an asshole, and I get really, s I get very sad vulnerable. So
Mm.
it is a lot of it, of course, naturally is very psychological
Mhm.
and how much pressure you put on yourself. So for us, mm, we perhaps we feel more free with our nose, um, than for others. It really is a struggle, and vice versa. But no, but go on.
No, no, the so I guess I will move on to, how did you first fall in love with clown?
I was doing I'm trying to make this Cole's note. I was doing a I was doing a workshop at this thing called the Players Academy. It was an intensive, and Mike Kennard of MUMP and SMOOT, my clown master, was teaching at the intensive. And I shone a little bit, and he said, you really should keep going, and you should be bringing your clown to the clown farm, which unfortunately, John Turner's clown farm is no longer with us, but the magic is still in the air. Um, And I remember distinctively looking at him at the corner of we were at Dover Park, and I looked up at him and I said, "You gotta be joking. Who makes a career out of clown?" But I was madly in love with it, and then we parted our ways. It was my last day of class, and I was like, "Okay, that's never gonna happen again." And then I went back to University for Theater in Montreal, and my first year I was scouted by Cirque du Soleil. I was in a Natalie Claude show, who is an incredible clown. She was a clown in the Cirque du Soleil Amaluna, and she was directing a show there, and I was one of the head clowns in the performance. And she said she invited Yves Charette, or so the story goes, to come see the show and watch out for the very strong clown woman who was in it. And that me. And after the show, I ran out and said, "Oh, you're the casting director of Cirque du Soleil. I'd love to audition for you." And he's like, "Yeah, of course." And now we're really good friends. He's wonderful. And I just said, "You know what? I think I really better start listening to people and take this seriously." My whole life I had been told how much I shone at comedy, and I was very nonchalant about it. But then I started taking it, and I just ran with it, and it just was like it just over. I got to experience Montreal. I got to experience so many different styles and so many different circuses and different adventures. And I flew all over, and then I went to get a master's degree in Edmonton under Mike Kennard, and I was able to go out to the once and only festival of clowns in Vancouver. That was really cool, and I got to meet that entire side of the world of clown, and I now know the other side of the world of Canadian clown. And along the way, I fell in love with everything. I just so in love. I can't. I don't know. It's just so magical. It really is.
What was it? I mean, as far as like shining, but what was it that kept drawing you into it? There's something that about it that resonates with you. So what is it that made you keep going with it?
I got I don't I'm just gonna act on impulse and tell you my first thoughts and not judge it. But really, when I knew I really, really, really was in love when I was standing on stage at the University of Alberta in front of a couple hundred people, and they were just screaming with laughter, and all I do was doing was just um loving being an asshole to someone in the audience, and the person I was directing the asshole towards, they just were loving that I was making them the asshole. So it was this way of being able to make fun of people, but having them in on the joke. And I think the nose and the humor and the not punching down at the same time. I know that sounds contradictory,
Hmm.
but there is a magic that clown allows you to uh, excuse your assholism because it comes from a place of love. And clown allows me, if I respect it and I respect the audience well enough, to walk that fine line of, yeah, how far can I go to make fun of other people and the world around me, and still be absolutely loved.
Hmm.
And I look back fondly on that moment and having a little aha, or a, I like to call it the Spalding Gray moment. Because it's my favorite story. I tell everyone this because Spalding Gray, the writer, and he was in the Wooster Group in New York City, well, couldn't leave any experience till he had that cathartic moment that made everything whole. So everything I do now, as I wait for that moment of catharsis, and I think it was one of the greatest moments in my life on stage at U of A with hundreds of people looking at me, and I just had them in the palm of my beautiful hand,
Hmm.
and I got to improvise and drop my script and go deal with all of these little magical gifts from the clown gods of humor, and then come back to the script, and then
Hmm.
the the roaring applause from the audience was just it was magic.
Yeah.
It was magical. It's
Yeah.
magical. It's magical. When you were just that free and funny at the same time.
Hmm.
When it's done well, it's done well. Even when it's done poorly, I still kind of love it because that clown tried. I'm very, very anti clique, and I'm very anti um snobbery of, "Ooh, I've studied with so and so."
Hmm.
I'm like, "That's fantastic, but
Hmm.
are you a good witch or a bad witch? Like, just be, are you nice? Are you good to work with? Are you funny? Are you a community member, or are you an insecure person who is just projecting your shit all
Hmm.
over us?" And if you are, like, how can we help you be a little more happy in life? So, it's human. It's human to be so, but it's just
Here's a controversial topic that anybody who does clown, I have to address this
I already know what you're
because,
doing.
and I
I
think you
already know.
probably know where I'm going to go.
I do.
Because I remember years ago, one of the times when I was doing a show, one of the Keystone Theater shows at the Toronto Festival of Clowns, I mentioned to a friend that I was doing this show at the Toronto Festival of Clowns, and their response was, "Oh, well, I'm not going to that." Like, there's this popular trope, and I get some people are afraid of that circus clown thing. I blame Tim Curry and it. But there's like that whole thing where it's now popular to be like, "Oh, a clown, I'm afraid." And in the meantime, people are sort of blocking themselves off to a really, because they don't understand what clown is. They only understand like the idea of circus. As far as where do you land on this thing? What do you think of this situation where it's popular to be afraid?
Um, I would be, if they're never going to come, so I'm not going to waste my emotional energy on them. Sure, go ahead. So you're missing out on some really great stuff, but like, if you want to know more, I'm here. I don't oppose horror clown. I
Hmm.
work with a lot of blood in my
Mm.
performance. And Muff and Smoot, if you read their stuff, they consider themselves horror clowns. They have called themselves that since their beginning of their creation, horror clowns. But the popularized. like it sort of horror clown. Um, I, I don't have the right to tell. No one has the right to tell anyone what is and what isn't clown. If that person believes it's clown, that doesn't mean I'm going to like it. However, if you are standing in a parking lot in a scary clown outfit trying to intimidate people, assault is assault. So I like to think that people aren't really afraid of clowns. They're afraid of people who are going to assault them. Because the whole rush of like those scary clowns that were running around
Right.
were like that's just people. That's those people that are going to intimidate and insult us.
Hmm.
And I really don't believe anyone in their right mind would believe that that's what clown was. I like to give the benefit of the doubt that people are not that
Yeah.
stupid.
I think that there's this idea because when people hear clown, the circus world has been really great at popularizing this particular image of what a clown is. Cirque du Soleil, on the other hand, they have like their it's like more the European thing. It's different. But when people think clown, they think like Ronald McDonald or something like that.
I think middle
Whereas,
America party clown, child clown.
yes,
Um,
yes,
I do think I'm going to say something very controversial, and I'm going to own it.
yeah,
I do think that the World Clown Association is riddled with problems. I believe they have a lot of deep-seated racism happening in there. And if you simply look back to their, I believe, 2015 award ceremony where they gave someone with yellow face an award, a very, very disgusting tribute
mm,
in a full a white man in a full Fu Manchu outfit,
mm,
mocking Asian people, was given an award. I do think a lot of those clowns are not changing with the times.
mm,
Obviously, they're not catering to a different audience. We're no longer in these huge rings. We are upfront and personal with children. So you do have to tone things down with children. You do have to be more sensitive. And you do have to get with the times when it comes to what is culturally acceptable, what costumes are appropriate, what makeup is appropriate. I believe clown through its entire history, and I have studied quite a bit of this, has adapted and changed to its needs of the audience. And I do not believe a lot, hashtag not all clowns, um, but I do think the majority of them have not gotten with the times. And I believe a lot of middle America party clowns have
mm,
um, really, you know, they need to do better. I am primarily focusing on the World Cloud Association.
mm,
I'm not afraid to say that out loud because I will fight racism to the bitter, bitter end, and I don't care.
mm,
I know there are a lot of people in that association that are trying to do better, and it is the World Clown Association, so there are many different cultures there. But the main focus is based in America, and we are
mm,
talking primarily about American clowning here. We're not moving into any discussion on Sacred First Nations clown or anything.
mm.
So, that this is my focus on this conversation, and it wouldn't hurt for people to start updating their image as you update to the needs of your audience.
I mean, in some ways, you could say that about theater in general. There's like a whole lot of things that are done in the theater world because that's how we do it. And so it's not just in clown, the theater world could do with that on its own as well.
I can believe that. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, it's funny. You remember you're mentioning about how, MUMP and SMOOT, they refer to themselves as horror clowns. And I can remember, I mean, I'm an old man, so I remember them at Toronto Fringe and being like it. They were horror clowns, but they were punk rock.
Oh yeah.
Like they were punk rock clowns. Like they were like on the edge. Nobody went to that thinking they were getting a circus clown. And this is pre like everybody's afraid of clowns. They were like the thing to see,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because it was, like, wild, and it was what Fringe was meant to be. So it's sort of like, they were a particular thing, and, I think that they were making their own rules at the time.
Oh, absolutely, and that is something I love about them so much, especially, they'll be returning to Apprentice under Mike Kennard, hopefully this following spring, um, and they do play by their own rules, and when you would go to one of their shows, it was like, you could be a victim. I was taught very, very much so, how beautiful the gift is, when an audience member that for example, I did a performance last week, and one of my audience members started to drift off to sleep. And I got the biggest laugh when I called them out on it and walked over. So if you went to one of their shows and anything happened, you would automatically be part of the show, and it was welcomed. And that spontaneity is another reason that I am absolutely in love with this style of clown I do, because you always apply to the Fringe, which I believe open today. I will be applying myself, and I always sign up for a 45-minute show and allot at least 15 minutes for audience improvisation, because
Mm,
anything is possible, and they're beautiful proof of it, and it's something they very much so teach. Drop the script and
yeah.
look for the gift of the clown gods in the audience, and go out and deal with the problem, deal with what was gonna happen. And that doesn't happen. I don't see that. I see that in the Montreal style clown.
Mm.
And that's something I wish I really did see, because we always talk about no fourth wall in clown, but very rarely do I see the clown when the wall is dropped. They actually deal with the problem that's going on. So,
Why why do you think it is that as far as the Montreal Clown goes, that you don't see that happening? What is the difference between the Montreal clown scene and, say, the Toronto clown scene?
oh, they're both wonderful communities, great clowns, but one is very much European style Gaulier teaching, which is becoming more and more popular here. It's fascinating to watch. Um, and I know why it's happening. And here it's very much the Canadian Anglais, because it's considered very Anglais. The Pachenko style, for lack of a better word for the names of pedagogy. And they're visually two different ways to 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 see a clown, and it's two drastically different styles of learning clown. And they're both valid. They're just different ways of approaching. Uh, and in the forefront, like I abide by 32 rules of clown, and there are no rules taught really in the Gaulier style of clown. It's very much just go out there and do and be fun.
Hmm.
I'm, I'm obviously oversimplifying this. There is much more
Yes,
to
of
it,
course, of
but
course.
but the style that I specialize in, the Pachenko style, you start from absolute um scratch, like nothing, and you learn along the way. And one of the main things is to a react to anything that happens in the world, and the audience
Mm,
is in your world, so you have to deal with it. And what a gift
mm.
for telephone in the audience to go off. Yeah. Oh my god, I do this show just so shit that happens in the audience, I can deal with. That's where my fun lies. The script and the laughter I get is fantastic, but when someone who genuinely fucks up in the audience, like falls asleep or their phone goes off or even sneezes, what a gift. And I eat that shit up, and that's what I wanna do. That's where I wanna go. I wanna be in the audience, just, like, tearing them a new one, and them loving that they're getting torn up, like, that's the thing with the clown. You can get away with a lot of shit. I can get away with, uh, totally making fun of someone down to their deep, dark core, and I know they'll walk away feeling like they were the most popular person in that room that day. 'Cause it's how you approach. 'Cause
Mm,
in essence, I like to believe that, 'cause this is how I genuinely feel when I'm out there, that everything I do, every moment of asshole comes from the most beautiful place of my heart.
Hmm.
Uh, and love doesn't always have to be flowers and sunshine. That's another thing. My work
Yeah.
is rather dark and screwed up, but it always comes from a place of love.
Hmm. Here's a question for you. Um, you've been posting some. I think you're experimenting with a new clown.
Yes and no. Yes. So,
Okay. I want to hear about this thing that you've been working on.
uh, so I made the choice to take my nose off and keep my producer hat on when I started the festival. It was just too much pressure. People kept coming up to me and being like, "Oh, you're starting a festival? You're an artistic director suddenly? You must be an incredible clown." And then it started getting in my head. I was like, "Whoa, running a festival. What if I'm not an incredible clown?" And then it got to the point where I decided, okay, you know what? Let's give ourselves a break. I took my nose off and I kept my hat on. So once the festival was given away, I was like, okay, I'm ready to do this. Let's find my clown again. It's Eunice with three U's. Um, I just ripped the band-aid off and started performing again because the Sweet Action Theater that is in town is like kind of becoming the heart of the clown community. There's some wonderful safe places for people to try out new things and to learn. There's a Monday night class called Play, where you come and you learn clown and physical theater and things along that line for people who may not have a lot of experience in performance. And the same people do this thing called the Dodo Dome, and John Beale has Save the Show, which that's a beast. Oh my God. So when my friend asked me, you want to perform at Dodo Dome? I agreed. And I was like, I haven't performed in 7 years. I haven't performed in 7 years. So I knew I wanted to take advantage of something that I felt I could uh, um, talk about. And I am a mental health advocate. So I put a lot of this topic into my clown. So Eunice wears a straight jacket and television antennas on her head. And what I'm doing is I'm making a comment on society about how quite often people who struggle with mental illness, as much as you say you support them, are ostracized and uh, treated as other, as much people who have differences than the norm are. And because of my condition and how I am able to use it to my advantage in this situation, Eunice lives in this world where she is the most sane person and the audience is the madhouse. So, um, what she does in her world when she explores on stage is she's in a constant state of confusion because everyone is just so mad, and she can't understand. They actually, my clown that is has no gender. They can't understand why they're surrounded by such mad and what I'm doing is I'm making a huge comment on society.
Hmm.
That's what I am working towards heavily.
Hmm.
And that's what I'll be working towards this next 6 months as I try to put together my
Right.
show.
Um, Now I know that you've been in Toronto for a few years from Montreal, and you've been doing some work at the Second City Conservatory.
Yes.
Was Second City the reason why you came to Toronto? Was that like, did you
It
want to
was a
take courses
huge
there? Did you
part.
want to?
Yeah. It was a huge part. I was handing over my festival. I was going through a very unfortunate divorce time. My parents are in Niagara, and I had previously been in Toronto, and I thought, okay, this might be a good time to go home and start fresh. And I was very, very ready to hand over the festival. I was like, I was done. I wasn't. My heart is always going to be in it, and I'm always a little sad that I'm not running it. But I'm their number one supporter. So I came and I started the conservatory, and then I needed to take a little break from it, and then COVID hit. And then as soon as I was able to, I jumped back in. And one of my goals has been to work towards getting to the main stage to Second City, which I am kind of hot and cold on these days because there's so much going on. I'm excited about everything. I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do everything. So, but right now, I'm in my last I'm in my last semester with just like the most wonderful cast. I just love them so dearly. And Paul Bates is going to be directing our final show. Who's an incredible writer, comedian, does a lot of the directing. So I'm really looking forward to that.
But you're working on on a new Toronto Clown Festival. What's happening with that? Where are you with that? What's
Okay.
Tell me everything.
So there's not a lot to tell, and that's okay. I, uh, when I very first got here in 2019, permanently 2019, I gathered some of the smartest people I knew who I thought would be great at running a festival because I didn't want to be in charge of a festival. I thrive hands-on managing the floor when the festival is actually happening and the artists are there and making sure everyone's happening in the natural flow and having a good time and making sure the place is a party. So Brian, La Violette, am I pronouncing that right? God, I hope so. He's the director of Moro and Jack. And then Alicia DeStefano, who is the producer of Red Nose Cabaret and a few others, but they are the two main artistic directors, and they have been getting together and chatting on exactly what their vision is. But we met quite a few times to discuss what we wanted. At first, it was really about what does the community need, and we had some clown halls, as I thought they were so cleverly called. And we listened to everybody, and we knew what they wanted. Uh, but honestly, a lot of the things they were asking for, as someone who was stepping back and able to observe an entire community from afar, didn't seem like something everyone was necessarily ready to follow through with. So there was a lot of talk about how bad people wanted affordable workshops, but I knew that some of the great teachers that were coming here were struggling to find students. So I was like, okay, So once COVID hit, then it died down because it's still going on and not necessarily over. But when we all felt safe to get back together, three of us got together and decided, okay, well, what do we want? We've had enough time to sit and think about this. And our main goal is sustainability because we want to bring a community together, but there is no festival without sustainability, which should always be the core of any festival. And I can tell you that something is in the works. Uh, Ideally, we are aiming for next fall, so we all line up with the other clown festivals in the country, and we don't overlap each other, and we can possibly support out of town artists with by them jumping festival across Canada. And we are focusing on, and this might change, although heavily clown in the clown community. At this point, there is not enough clowns who are performing in the community to sustain a festival. We are moving towards more of a physical theater
Hmm.
and we want to focus on weird, but not like fetish weird. We want to try to find a little more puppetry,
Hmm.
some street art and clowning, just like more of the outsiders, like Misfit
Hmm.
Island kind of treasures, the things that don't necessarily fit into any festival would fit into this one, and it
Hmm.
would be heavily focused around clowning and ball and puppetry and just like
Hmm.
really special things and trying to support artists and make sure everyone gets paid as well
Yeah.
as we possibly can until we can get funding.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to ask you to speculate. for a moment.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to speculate about why you think that there is not, um, why there isn't enough clown. Have clown people stopped clowning? Have they left the clown industry? What's
I think a lot. I think I think there is a large group of clowns still in mourning over the unfortunate, oh, it's more than unfortunate, the devastating loss of Helen Donnelly, who was an incredible clown teacher here, who passed way before her time this last year. I think they're still in mourning and they're not necessarily prepared to come out. I think there are a lot of what we would call baby clowns to almost intermediate clowns in the city. But from what I've seen, there are very few professional level clowns in the city that that they themselves could sustain a very solid piece of work for
hmm,
any festival or for fringe even. And it's not because they're not talented or they're not heart's not in it. It's just there's not a lot of directors. Like I very
hmm,
much so myself want to get into directing clown. Um, it- there's just not enough advanced teachers especially in the world of pachinko clowning. You have to drive 8, 9 hours north to Sudbury if you want to get to a little more advanced clowning. Or I am bringing the incredible Jed Tomlinson in from Montreal, who is
hmm,
John Turner's protege,
hmm,
who's an incredible teacher, an incredible clown, Sizzle and Spark, incredible clown duo. Oh my God, fantastic. He is going to be one of the future masters in Pacheco, such as
hmm,
myself, I believe, once my apprenticeship has come to fruition. I'm bringing him in January to try to introduce it. Um, there is a really interesting thing with lots of baby clowns in the improv world right now,
hmm,
and but they don't have the experience or qualifications to hold a solid performance.
hmm.
And when I mean solid, I mean like a 45-minute, 30 to 45-minute solid
Right,
presentation that can bring audience members back in. And in Toronto,
right, right, right.
Canada
Yeah.
right now, there's lots of baby clowns, but there's no advanced
Hmm,
uh, clowns.
hmm,
There's no one really there to guide them right now.
hmm. That's
So,
yeah.
but
Definitely, that's a problem.
yeah. So I very much so want to change that. I want to
Yeah.
bring people up to their potential and guide them through a proper performance so they can be stronger clowns. And it really is like getting blood from a stone right now. And I don't
Hmm,
know if that's because people are still afraid of COVID. I don't know if it's because they're still in mourning. But the only clowns that I am seeing that are active right now uh, are the new improv clowns because Ken Hall and Isaac Kessler have started this thing called Clown Prov, and a lot of these improvisers are starting to discover how they can mix the two, and they're discovering clown for the first time. And they are bringing in teachers from LA. So John
hmm,
Ilke has been coming up, who's an incredible teacher, and again, John Beal, who is teaching a whole new slew of students, and he does Goulier technique. So this is all sort of Goulier idiot technique, which is very, very different style than what I
hmm,
teach and do. And it's all valid, but there's just all these fresh faces, and I just don't know where the clown community is. I don't know what the Pacheco clown community is. They're not coming out. I'm calling for them. I'm trying to offer them space, sweet
hmm,
action, and I'm trying to offer directing and I am here and excited to help create and shape all of these wonderful clowns, but I can't make people clown and I don't know where they are. And I want the improv clown world and the clown world to meet and come together. And I want the cliquiness to just fuck right
Mm,
up. And at the end of the day, just fuck, guys. It's just clown.
yeah.
It's wonderful,
Yeah.
but we really need to come together as a community. We have to start creating. And it's just not happening.
Yeah, that cliquiness, I think, is a problem just across the theater
Absolutely.
world. We refer to the theater community, but we don't know what that is
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
all of the silos and the cliquiness.
It really is. I have zero tolerance for that shit. Zero tolerance. I refuse to treat anyone any differently.
Yeah. Well, Kendall Savage, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a delight to have an opportunity to chat with you.
Oh, I love it.
This has been an episode of Stageworthy. Stageworthy is produced, hosted, and edited by Phil Rickaby. That's me. If you enjoyed this podcast and you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can leave a 5-star rating. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can also leave a review. Those reviews and ratings help new people find the show. If you want to keep up with what's going on with Stageworthy and my other projects, you can subscribe to my newsletter by going to philrickaby.com/subscribe. And remember, if you want to leave a tip, you'll find a link to the virtual tip jar in the show notes or on the website. You can find Stageworthy on Twitter and Instagram at StageworthyPod, and you can find the website with the complete archive of all episodes at stageworthy.ca. If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Phil Rickaby, and as I mentioned, my website is philrickaby.com. See you next week for another episode of Stageworthy.